Doug Kide here with Zach Cox. We just listened to Bill Belichick's 24-minute pre-draft press conference. He started out with about a 8.5-minute soliloquy. Some might call it a filibuster, but he gave some information in there. But he certainly also answered some questions. And one of the interesting things that he was talking about was just the amount of draft capital that the Patriots have heading into the NFL draft, which is in 2 weeks. They have the 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick. So almost everything is on the board for the Patriots to select here.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway from Bill Belichick's press conference, that he said pretty much everybody, every prospect in this draft, the Patriots need to evaluate, because they can really, with the draft capital they obviously have the 2 first-round picks, they have the 2 second-round picks. They can move up pretty much as high as they want to in this draft. They have the ammunition to. So they really have to evaluate a lot more players than they did last year when they didn't pick until the 3rd round, and even 2 years ago where they lost that first-round pick to Deflategate, they didn't pick until late in the 2nd round. So there's definitely a lot more kind of prospect evaluation they have to do. But I did think that it was interesting that Bill Belichick did note that there are still some players that he considers out of the Patriots' range. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to take everything that's said before the draft with a grain of salt, but that does kind of indicate that maybe the Patriots aren't willing to go all the way up to those top 3, 4, 5 picks where some of those marquee quarterbacks and some of the other best players are in the draft. So I definitely found that interesting.
Yeah, he said there's a handful of players. So I don't know how many players he can fit in his hand. Is it 1 hand, 2 hands? But yeah, it could be 4 or 5, even up to 10 players that he doesn't think the Patriots can move up for. Another interesting thing is that Bill Belichick was asked about perceived draft needs, and he kind of shut down the idea of drafting for needs, which is something that I addressed in this week's mailbag, that yes, the Patriots need, say, an offensive tackle, but just because they need an offensive tackle doesn't mean that they need to reach for a player in the 1st round if that player isn't deemed worthy of a 1st-round pick by the Patriots. And that's really what Bill Belichick was saying. And offensive tackle is actually a good example, because this isn't a great offensive tackle draft class. So if some of those top guys like Mike McGlinchey start going off the board before the Patriots are picking, and the Patriots are left with the Colton Miller or maybe Connor Williams, I don't think it's smart to reach at that point. I think at that point you might have to just hold off on drafting on an offensive tackle, or hold off on drafting for need until the right player comes out at the right spot. Because if you can get a superstar in the 1st round, you don't want to reach for a guy who might not really be worth that pick. So I think that everyone kind of knew that the Patriots don't draft a whole lot for need, but Bill Belichick really kind of confirmed that in that pre-draft news conference, and draft is still 2 weeks away.
All about player value.
Yes, all about player value, Bill Belichick said. So as you were talking about, Patriots have a lot of different options they can do in the draft. So it's actually a really exciting time, and in 2 weeks, we'll just have to see when that first pick for the Patriots comes off the board, whether it will be at number 23, even earlier than that, or perhaps they'll trade down and it'll be later than number 23 overall. Until then, keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots draft coverage. Follow Zach at Zach Cox NESN. Follow me at Doug Kide.